Special Counsel Jack Smith emerges. We see him in public, walking around, presumably getting ready for a big day. Now, we've been speculating here for some time. What does that mean? Is Trump going to be indicted at the federal level? Probably. I really have a hard time believing that they're going through all of this for nothing, that they're puffing this up, saying that Trump created an insurrection, the worst thing since the Civil War, and on and on and on to just let this thing peter out, right? So Jack Smith is now out. We learned yesterday Trump's team met with him, and Congress is starting to get involved in this a little bit. Jim Jordan sent 2 letters over to the DOJ demanding to know about the scope and the scale of this investigation. And of course, we've got reaction to all of this. What does Bill Barr think? What does Ted Cruz think? What does that guy George Conway think about this prosecution as it develops? But we see Jack Smith walking around now. MSNBC was there. They're salivating over this. It's Jack Smith. Oh, here he is.
Hey there, Mr. Smith. How are you doing? Gary Grumbach from NBC News here. Is an indictment coming soon, sir? Is an investigation wrapping up, sir?
Weren't able to see too much of him until recently. He's taking the long walks now. Used to use the underground parking, now he's taking the walks.
NBC's Ken Delaney is back with us. Ken, he had absolutely nothing to say, which is what you would expect.
Well, I might have expected him to politely decline to comment. I think he was taken aback because not a lot of people know where Jack Smith's office actually is. Jose, it's in a place in Washington, D.C. that is not at the Justice Department, and our intrepid colleague Gary Grumbach tracked him down there.
Oh, maybe that's why we haven't seen much of him. He got outed by NBC. They're very excited to see him and ask him questions. What is coming up soon? And so Jim Jordan has sent in a couple letters over to the DOJ demanding to know more about this. Here is one of them. Letter drafted to the Honorable Merrick Garland over from the DOJ. Drafted June 1st, 2023, coming out of the office of Jim Jordan, chairman of the Judiciary Committee from the United States House of Representatives. He says, "Hey, Merrick Garland, on May 12th, Special Counsel John Durham released a report detailing the FBI's failings in opening and conducting an investigation, codenamed Crossfire Hurricane, into the debunked allegations of collusion between Trump's presidential campaign and the Russian government. Now, the extent of the FBI's bias and reckless disregard for the truth, which Special Counsel John Durham laid out in painstaking detail, is nothing short of scandalous. The FBI has tried to dismiss the report's findings by claiming to have, quote, already implemented dozens of corrective actions to prevent similar misconduct in the future. But the FBI's window dressing is not enough, says Jim. The special counsel's report serves as a stark reminder of the need for more accountability and reforms within the FBI. And accordingly, as Congress conducts oversight to inform these legislative reforms, we write to ensure that the Justice Department act to preserve the integrity and the impartiality of ongoing investigations from the FBI's politicized bureaucracy. So he wants to know, this is about the 2016 election, and the next one's going to be more about this current prosecution, but both are towards the DOJ and the FBI. He says the special counsel's report details how the FBI abused its law enforcement authorities to achieve its political ends. That is, to hamstring the campaign and the presidency of Trump. While we trust you're familiar with the report's findings, it's worth highlighting some of the most troubling conclusions. The FBI did not possess any actual evidence of collusion before deciding to launch Crossfire Hurricane. FBI appears to have disregarded this issue largely due to the personal and political biases against Donald Trump harbored by FBI personnel involved in the investigation. The FBI failed to apply basic investigative techniques, appropriately assess the credibility, adequately consider exculpatory evidence, or anything else during the investigation. Different standards of justice, one for Trump, one for Hillary. They rapidly opened an investigation into Trump based on raw, uncorroborated information. The FBI also disregarded highly significant intelligence it got from a trusted foreign source that the purported collusion at the heart of the hurricane investigation was a ploy by Clinton to divert this away from Hillary's email scandals. So, public trust, he says, in the FBI is low. Jordan says recent examples of political bias in the FBI and the DOJ operations show that the so-called corrective measures the FBI instituted after Crossfire Hurricane have nothing and done nothing to address, let alone cure, the institutional rot that pervades the FBI. It is clear that Congress must consider legislative reforms to the FBI or defund them, and the committee has been engaged in robust oversight to inform these proposals. In the interim, however, due to the FBI's documented political bias, the Justice Department must ensure any ongoing investigations are not poisoned by this same politicization. We therefore request that you provide the following information, Mayor. 1. Provide information about the use of FBI personnel by, here we go, fast forward to today, Special Counsel Jack Smith. How many FBI people are you using on this case? The total number of FBI employees assigned to work on this investigation. Jack. How many FBI employees from FBI headquarters are prosecuting Trump? How many? You're using your own government to prosecute your political enemies, even though the FBI has a history of being anti-Trump. And Jim wants to know the number of the FBI employees from Washington also working on the investigation. How many different FBI agents? Probably a lot. Also wants an explanation as to whether any FBI employees who have worked on Smith's investigation previously worked on any other matters concerning Trump. Are these career anti-Trumpers? And explain whether Smith's investigation relies on any material that was gathered exclusively by the FBI prior to special counsel's appointment. In other words, did the FBI just drop a big fat dossier on Jack Smith's desk like, whoa, and just say, here you go. Go wild, Jack. We couldn't get him on any of this stuff, but go crazy. We also ask that you arrange a briefing by Lisa Monaco, who many people say really actually runs the DOJ, about any matters related to Durham, including remedial measures the department has implemented, if any. The committee is authorized to conduct oversight of the DOJ. Please provide a response. If you have any questions, please call us. Thanks for your attention. We'll see. Sincerely, your friend, Jim Jordan, chairman of the Judiciary Committee. Over to Jack Smith. So what is the scope? What is the scale of this? How many people are working on this? How many FBI employees? Maybe they have undercover informants. Who knows what's going on? But they want some details. And my guess is the DOJ is going to say, well, we can't tell you any of that. This is an ongoing investigation. They love that line. So Jim Jordan sent another letter over. This one came out June 6th, also from the Judiciary Committee. And now this one also goes to Merrick Garland. He says, Mayor, gosh, I'm sick of writing you, man. But the Committee on the Judiciary is continuing to investigate the FBI's unprecedented raid of Trump's residence at Mar-a-Lago on August 8th. We previously requested information and documents related to the FBI raid, but because you have not provided this information and in light of your appointment of Jack Smith as special counsel, we now write to request an unredacted copy of the memo outlining the scope of Mr. Smith's probes regarding President Trump and any supporting documentation related to his appointment as special counsel. Now, this is something that we saw previously, and I was curious about how far this would go. So remember that the special counsels had an appointment memo that we read through here some time ago, and we were saying, okay, well, what's he going to investigate? Like, can the special counsel go and investigate election financial crimes? No, that's clearly outside the scope of what he has been permitted to do. He can't just go and find anything he wants about Trump, like just get Trump for anything. He's got some limited rules that he has to follow. And we were asking ourselves when we read through it about the scope and about the bounds. Are there any upper, lower, outer limits for this investigation? What do they look like? And as we've been seeing this investigation materialize, one thing that they are getting into now is a lot of the election 2020 stuff. Not January 6th, but election stuff and what Trump was doing to do something with the election, not the aftermath of the election, right? Which is a different thing. And January 6th has tentacles that you can really follow far back, all the way back. And so you can take it to pre-election activities. And we've seen some murmurings that that is happening. So what's Congress doing is they're saying, I want to know what that circle is. Where are you cut off? What's in bounds? What's out of bounds? Let us know. Accordingly, please provide the committee with an unredacted copy of the memo outlining the investigation pursuant to his appointment, any other documents listing the authority no later than June 20th. We've got the authority to investigate you, to oversee, and to see the DOJ and the FBI. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, your friend, Jim Jordan. So we do want to know a lot more about this, and things get slippery. What if he steps outside of bounds a little bit? What happens if he finds something that's technically not within his purview? Can he use that? We're going to have fights over that, and defense attorneys would say, no, that's outside of the bounds. Now, there's apparently a second grand jury that is being convened in Florida. DC has its own separate case because of stuff that originates from DC, but remember the classified documents were found at Mar-a-Lago. And so there's a grand jury that's being convened in Florida to determine whether charges can move forward out of a Florida district court. A federal grand jury will meet this week in Florida, which will be a second one, to hear new evidence from Jack Smith. Not clear how the court proceedings relate to the work. Prosecutors have already been presenting evidence in Washington for months. Why prosecutors are using multiple grand juries and whether they're ready to seek an indictment in either jurisdiction is unknown. Justice Department declined to comment on the investigation. So don't know much about what's going on in Florida. All this stuff is kept in secret, but we've got reaction from people, including George Conway, a rabid anti-Trumper, somebody who I think may have gotten divorced because of Trump or something. I mean, really on one when it comes to Trump. But here's what he said about this new looming indictment.
What does it signal to you that Trump's three attorneys were at DOJ headquarters yesterday about where we are in this process?
Well, we're approaching the very end. I mean, I kept hearing this earworm in my head as I was coming to the studio this morning. This is it. Make no mistake. I mean, we're getting down to the final strokes of this race.
They are getting down to their final strokes. There's no doubt.
What's really remarkable about is that of all the things that this man has done, 8 decades of lying and cheating and stealing, this documents case, is probably the easiest, shortest, simplest, and yet carries the most severe penalties, of likely penalties of any of the cases that he has any of the legal issues that he's ever faced. Now, people would say, he really, in a just world, he would go to jail for what he did on January 6th and the weeks approaching January 6th, and I kind of agree with that. But for this man who is basically a nihilistic moron, for him to go to jail, potentially, for a long time, I mean, these Espionage Act charges bring very heavy sentences, to eventually go to jail for something so stupid and pointless and silly and useless as...
It is stupid and silly and useless, right? It's not that big of a deal. But they're prosecuting him because it's a political enemy. Don't you see the contradiction there, George? It is stupid and useless. And you may hate the guy. You might say he's got all these other things. He's a, pervert or whatever, whatever they call him, an abuser or whatever. And you might say those things, but they're getting him on a technical documents thing that feels like it is created in many senses because of how they allowed the process to unfold.
As keeping these documents is actually kind of fitting.
It's actually kind of fitting. So these people are just, giddy as can be that this is now coming down to the line.